What is that sound? Do you hear that? Is that another episode of The More You NoCo I hear? You might be correct. Ivan Wayne here on the podcast about the people and ideas around northern Colorado. All aboard! Let's go. Before we introduce today's guests, we want to let you know that if you'd like to see some photos of the museum featured on today's episode, check out our Instagram page at The More You NoCo. This time, we'll be hearing from two separate guests, Michelle and Sherelle, both representing the Colorado Model Railroad Museum located here near downtown Greeley. How do you feel about trains? Do you have an opinion about trains in society? Want to hear about why someone, after getting a terminal diagnosis, decided to have their final family gathering at the Colorado Model Railroad Museum? Stay tuned. Well, can you edit out the train? And I'm just saying, nope.
We'll just have a train. We'll probably have one too. Although they might be doing track work, so it's been quiet today.
Well, if there's a podcast, it's appropriate to be interrupted by a train.
Yeah, totally for us.
Today is the most appropriate.
We schedule them.
That's right. Part of the freight design.
We try.
All right. Here I sit in person at the Colorado Model Railroad Museum with Sherelle, the Director of Visitor Experience.
Hello.
And Michelle, the Executive Director here.
Hello.
So first time on an episode here, we've had two guests at the same time. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
So I just want to jump in for any of our listeners who don't know, what is the Colorado Model Railroad Museum?
You want me to take it?
Yes.
Okay, so the Colorado Model Railroad Museum is a model railroading experience. And we have a lot of real railroad items too, but our main attraction is our immersive model train layout. But I think our mission says it all. We want to educate, inspire, and bring joy to people. So I say it's a place of joy. That's how I describe it, but that's not very descriptive of exactly what you're seeing.
Okay, right? So it's a place of joy. People walk in.
Yes.
And what do they see?
They see the finest detailed model train layout in America. It is the largest and it is fully dispatched. So they will see an alive railroad where it's exactly like the real world, but shrunk down even to time. So we shrink size, distance, buildings, everything gets shrunk down, and we shrink time too. And we operate it like a real railroad. It's very exciting.
Everything's shrunk to scale.
Yes.
Right.
Our scale is a 1 to 87. So if you shrunk yourself 87 times, you could live in that world.
Right. And is there a specific time frame or year that the model layout
It's based
mirrors?
out of 1975 in Oregon, in the fall of 1975.
And why Oregon? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, this has to do with the man who built it. His name is Dave Trussell, and he was a newspaper publisher, and his first newspaper was in Lakeview, Oregon, which is in our layout. So he watched this real railroad that we run, the Oregon, California, and Eastern Railroad, and it was his dream to always build the ultimate model railroad layout and build it with that railroad. So he planned it his whole life. And now he's retired, and he lives in Pennsylvania with his grandkids, and we run the show here, but he built it, and he built this it's Oregon, but it looks like Colorado. There's a lot of imagination in it.
Yeah. Well, there's some similarities between Oregon and Colorado, the terrain and such. So, Sherelle, being the Director of Visitor Experience, what are some main things that you focus on?
I focus on our visitors, of course. We have an I Spy game that we hand out to kids. We have them for adults and seniors. Everyone loves to play them, and we just hide a mystery critter. We change that often going by our events and by the holidays. And then we have other items that you're looking for in the railroad, such as a little girl with skunks, a car for sale, several different items that everyone loves to play.
And he's tiny, smaller than a dime, and you have to find him.
Oh, like an eagle to scale.
Yeah, like a 2-scale eagle. I love that one. That's
what's the current hidden critter now that Halloween's approaching?
Well, it's a chipmunk, so I haven't changed it, but we do have a ghost that will be
for
all of October.
That's very neat. So, we mentioned the word joy. Is there any other, captivating feelings you want people of all ages to feel when they're immersed in this design?
I think so, definitely. In fact, we just started a program with the Alzheimer's Association because we feel that there's this nostalgia that comes with trains that sometimes connects with those long-term memory where they still have that piece of it. But with everyone that comes through here, we find that there's not only a family connection, among the family that's visiting, but there's usually a historic connection. Someone in their life, an uncle or a grandpa or someone either had a train set, worked on a railroad, or they loved trains as a kid. It seems like every person I've met, a train has affected their life in one way or another. And so I think what we bring is that connection, and out of that comes the joy.
Sherelle, anything to add to that?
It's just a great place for families to come during the holidays. No matter if you've been here once or several times, it's a great place for families to come and enjoy their day.
Right.
Yeah, we find our visitors are multi-generational. It's grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad, and the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you get a lot of young adults, like let's say 20 to 30?
No, but I wish we did. And this would be the best date place ever. I mean, there's a hint for your listeners. This is a great place to bring a date. They
Believe
just don't know it.
I will attest. It sounds unlikely, but I will attest. Yeah. So we were talking before the podcast. Before I first visited the museum, here's a train.
Here's
on
their
cue.
train. We said there'd be a train.
Very appropriate. Is it like pretty loud that
that was their hello, and now they'll go on.
They'll go by?
Yeah.
So it'll be all right.
Probably one more whistle at the next intersection.
Yeah, it's a very immersive train experience I'm getting right now. When I first showed up to the museum, I was expecting to see relics, like parts of old trains and plaques with stories. But when I walked in, the first thing I saw was this huge display. And I saw model trains, and I saw volunteer conductors that were here working and maneuvering these trains on switch tracks, which we'll talk about. And I don't know. I don't know if it was my own ignorance, but this place blew me away. And I've brought several people here. I think it's a hidden gem. Do you find that a lot? It is a hidden gem.
Oh yeah, I've been here for almost 9 years, and I've only had one person who was ever disappointed, and he was just grumpy about everything. But of all this time, everyone pretty much finds something they love here.
Yeah.
In some people, it is some of our artifacts or that story, but most people, it's the fact that they're in a living world. And like you said, our operators bring that to life, because you're right there next to the guy who's running the train, because each train is controlled by an individual. And so there's people out there with you, talking to you, and you're really a part of that experience.
One
it's
thing
really different.
Oh yeah,
we have people coming in, and sometimes they're teenagers, sometimes they're mainly wives, and they just look like they're not interested. Sometimes they'll come and sit down because they don't want to pay to come in, but they realize everyone else is leaving here with smiles, and by the time they leave, they're leaving with a smile too.
They usually are like, I want to play that game. That looks really fun.
Right. I've brought people who probably never had a second thought about model trains, and they were impressed by the place.
Yeah, there's something here for people who have no clue about trains.
Right. On the flip side, I kind of was thinking, do you think that model trains as an interest is generational? Do you feel like there's a gap? Because a lot of times when I tell people about the museum, or when I tell people that it was always a childhood aspiration to have my own model train layout, like this, like not to this scale,
but one in your home that you could play with.
Right. And I feel like I don't hear that very much.
Well, so I've done a lot of thinking about this. As the director, I have to make it sustainable, right? And you can't go to Walmart and buy a train set. It's just not possible. You have to go to a specialty store now. And so kids are missing out on model railroading. So we're trying to bring that back in. That's why we were talking earlier about us teaching in public schools. We're actually going into the schools and building model train layouts with kids to connect them to this again. It's a hobby. But there's so many parts to it. We're learning that when we break it down, people love it. There's art in it, there's science in it, there's math in it, there's programming, there's electronics, there's so many things that most people can find one piece of it that they connect with. And that's how I think the hobby will continue. So,
Right.
But we're working hard to get kids to fall in love with it, because it really is, it's a hobby that does connect with all the STEM programming type things, and it connects with that part of your brain that makes you creative. And so we're trying to bring it back. But the part you're talking about is just the loss of it in our society, and the ability to buy a model train anywhere. You can't just do it. You have to either order it or drive to Denver or go to a specialty hobby shop.
And it's not cheap.
And they're not cheap.
Right.
They're getting better, and technology is amazing. We have one of the most high-tech model railroads out there. It's all wireless and digital. We make it look like 1975. But it is super high-tech underneath all that.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm glad to hear that you liked it, and we find people that do, and there are kids that connect with it Thomas the Tank Engine has been a huge social boon for us. And kids start with that, and they love it. And it's the wooden track, and they're playing with wooden trains on wooden track. And that's what kids are playing with today more than anything else, more than the electric model trains. So that's, I don't know. Did I answer your question kind of, though, about why I think that gap is there? How I solve it, I don't know, other than we're just trying our best to create youth programming to get kids to fall in love with it.
Right.
We have a lot of grandparents that come in and they bring their grandkids here to try and bring them into the hobby as well. And the kids are excited because it's something that they can work on with their grandparents who worked on it a long time ago compared to today. And we see a lot of those visitors in here.
Yeah, that's where we get that multi-generational thing. And a lot of kids do have a grandparent that did have a model train, but I think that's going away. I think it's not as much as it used to be. So we're trying to fix that.
Yeah. I don't know a single person in 2018 in my entire life that has a model train at home. I feel like that used to be more numerous.
It did. It was totally more numerous. Yeah. Especially in the 50s and 60s. I think that was kind of the heyday of the model railroading world. And I just went to a big industry convention in the model railroading industry, and they want to connect youth, and they're trying to figure out how do we connect our hobby with youth today. And it's not an easy task. So,
do you think any of the outside influence? Okay, so for example, trains back in the 50s and 60s, when you said it might have been the heyday for model trains, you could almost argue that the decline in model interest could be following a decline in usage and awareness of trains.
And riding trains.
In the United States.
People don't get to ride trains today. You have to pay a lot of money to ride a tourist train today to ride a train, or pay to go into a zoo to ride a tiny train, you know? So just the ability to be on a train is not what it used to be. Amtrak is, you know, the only line through Colorado that's accessible to northern Colorado is the one in Denver. And you can just go east or west. So
in a hypothetical world, do you think if we increase passenger trains that an interest in models would come back because it's more salient? It's real world applicable? I actually do.
And if you look at Japan, they're really heavy into modeling. The really populous cities where they have a lot of public transportation, modeling is huge there. So I don't know. That's an interesting connection. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts here?
I think so. I have younger girls, and just their perspective since they've come in here, they've grown such a major interest in trains. I mean, it's never been their interest before, and now they're obsessed with them, and we buy them, and they love them. They notice a train everywhere. They're learning the different railroads out there, and they're learning. My oldest daughter has come to our youth programs here, and it's just been a major impact on them since they've been introduced.
I think that's a major barrier that's gone away, is girls and trains. Even when we're teaching in the school, I found that the girls are actually more involved almost than the boys.
They love it.
They love it. And especially the scenery part and building the scenery. And the boys want to crash the trains because, you know, it's first grade. That's what I want to do, is crash the trains. And the girls are like, let's build pretty trees and houses in this great world. But, you know, it is connecting with all of them in different ways. And so... But it is interesting that it's pretty much across the board, boys and girls, even where it used to be considered a guy's hobby.
Have you thought about why that might be? Why this sudden spike in female
interest? I think
interest?
that just has to do with society as a whole. I mean, and we're working with girls and boys. I think that model railroading used to be a Boy Scout thing and not a Girl Scout thing. But now Girl Scouts have a railroad badge.
Oh, okay.
And so I think it's just our society change has done that change.
In general.
Yeah.
So it's making things more accessible for girls to say, trains are cool. I want to build model trains. And it's not.
And we're equally inclusive here. I mean, my daughter was the same. When I first started here, my daughter was the same age as hers. And I had a similar experience. My daughter loved this place. She couldn't get enough hours in here and loved trains. And now she's in college. But
right. So. That's neat. It's neat to see them grow up with this. And that it could easily be, not taught, it's probably the wrong word, but this interest in model trains could come from just a couple of pieces of exposure to the model layout and the system, even if you're not riding passenger trains in real life.
I think exposure is the word that we're looking for. Exposure to it. And I think once they come through this door, most kids love this. And we do crazy things. When I first started here, I was the very first employee, and Mr. Trussell said, now here's the deal. If we do go public with this place and it becomes a tourist place, this is what I always want it to be. If it's not fun, change it. So that's my only rule. If it's not fun, you change it. And I think we're all about that. And that involves everybody, girls, boys, equally, everyone. We're just here to have fun. And so I think so when they come in here, they find this exposure to model railroading. And even if it's not what they first expected, they do find something here that's fun.
Yeah.
We're trying to bring Legos into our museum as well. We have a Lego display now from the Cowlug Lego group.
The Colorado, Wyoming Lego Users Group. Cowlug.
No
They're
idea
amazing
such a group
people.
existed.
They're amazing.
So we have Legos for our youth to play with, and then we have their display, which is a Halloween theme right now, and that'll change out through the holidays.
So is it near like the real world design or
No. It's completely crazy and fun.
completely different?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's really neat. And Legos are probably the most used modeling tool for kids today. And some kids build trains with Legos. Some build cars. They build all kinds of things. But Legos and Minecraft are those basic building blocks, and it's modeling.
Right.
And that's what we do. And so we're trying to connect with those kind of things. And maybe that's how we hit the next generation.
Yeah. To put a positive spin on this decline of interest in model trains, we could say it's transferring elsewhere. Legos are very accessible at a dime a piece. Legos allow kids to model things immediately for just a couple of dollars.
Right.
Or Minecraft, you spend $30, $40 for this video game, and you have an endless amount of possibilities, an endless amount of time.
And modeling.
Of building, yeah.
That's what it is. And that's what we do. So when we were writing our mission and our vision, I told you what our mission was. Our vision is to use model railroading as an avenue for human creativity. And so we're all about taking that creative piece of it. So you just connect with the art and you just paint. Great. Let's paint some backdrops. Let's paint whatever you want to paint from this miniature world. Hopefully we inspire you to go out of here and paint. Or build something with Legos. And maybe kids go home and build a train out of Legos. That's fabulous. Or build a car. We have cars in the layout. We have trees. We have everything. It's a world. So anything that you would build, hopefully you could be inspired to build it. So that's kind of where we were going with that. There's so many creative things you can do based out of model railroading.
Right. And do you think there's value in just seeing this world that's of a totally similar scale, but it's way smaller? I feel like just that alone to a child it sparks some imagination.
I think so.
There's so much different scenes in the layout that gives you just an imagination. You kind of just, when you're here, you get focused on the whole entire layout and just imagine yourself through the layout. And there's just so much imagination and creativity that you can see when you're here.
Are there popular parts of the layout? Because I have a couple I know I want to ask about.
The forest fire.
Okay, yep, that's the number one.
Uh-huh.
Yep,
I have a hunch that many kids want to hit that button that starts a leftover forest fire. Am I correct?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And then we have a fireworks factory that catches on fire too. We have 2 fires.
Oh, I did not. Wow.
Yeah, and then we just added chickens. You probably haven't even seen
But
that.
the chickens are not catching on fire.
No,
Right.
the chickens are fine. They're in a little feed yard, and we have a little flock of chickens, and they move, and there's sound effects with them. So the woman's feeding the chickens.
Oh.
And that's where the changes that we're making to the layout now that it's a complete layout, we're adding all these little sound effects. Our sawmill has the sawmill sound effects now, and we're finding that not only do you have the visual experience here, you have an audio experience here. All of our locomotives have sound chips in them. You hear all the sounds that a real locomotive should make, those little squeals, those little pops and clicks. And we have cars that have sound in them so that you hear that as the train goes by. You hear the noises that the wheels make as they're passing in front of your car. And we just have so much sound. We're finding that sound is half the experience.
Street lights flicker, just like in the real world.
We actually make our streetlights flicker. You're not going crazy.
Wow.
And it's not failing. It's the real world. They flicker.
That is such an attention to detail. That's very neat.
And we try to be that intensive. And it's not Sherelle and I doing that. It's these volunteers who have these amazing imaginations. And they have an idea and say, hey, I want to try this. And we go for it. So.
And they ask, hey, I have this, I just want to, what do you think? And then you try it out.
Exactly. Our volunteers make this place run. There's about 100 active people that come from Colorado Springs to Cheyenne, and they're here every weekend. And every Monday, they just come to clean. A bunch of guys come in to clean and just maintain stuff. We're just so fortunate to have such a base of people that care and want to be involved. And we're always open to, if you want to volunteer and you have an idea, okay, great, come talk to us. We want to meet you. So.
I feel like bridges are popular here too.
Bridges,
I
yes,
know, my first
very
time,
much so.
It was like I reverted to 8-year-old me, and I was like, no, we're not leaving until I see it cross this huge bridge over here.
The high bridge. Yeah.
Right.
That was hand built. Each little piece of wood was put together individually to build that bridge. Yeah, and we used to have great accidents off that bridge, but then we put like special rails so it won't derail on it. Sorry.
So they were not designed accidents. It would
No.
come off the track
It
right
would
there.
truly derail on that bridge a lot when I first came here. And so the guys designed like a rail system like they use in the railroad that keeps the train on its rails across the bridge.
Yeah.
Had to do a little maintenance.
Right. One thing that fascinated me when I first came here, I was talking to some of the volunteer conductors, and they were showing me how they're walking around and paying attention to the signals on the track switches. And they're waiting their turn, and they're all driving their own train. So
Correct.
this isn't like...
And they have to communicate with the dispatcher to get clearance to pass the next
Right,
signal.
so they all have radios on.
Yes.
And where's this dispatcher at?
He's in the office by the front where you come in. He
Okay.
can't even see the railroad. He's in his own office. So he's looking at a panel with switches. And it's exactly like it was in 1975. And he has to know where the trains are. So there's constant audio communication going on.
Yeah, because I noticed the headsets, and I was like,
Yeah.
are they just faking? Are
It's
they just
exactly
pretending
as
to
if
talk?
they were in the train in 1975. They just don't fit in the train. So they walk next to it. So,
Right, and that's so neat. I would assume that this gets shared with kids and with people visiting. Like, look, we're actually controlling it, and this is not just...
We'll have them wave to the conductor, and the conductor will
Yeah.
honk their horn, or we'll let them push the buttons. And
we'll let the kids honk the horn. So we have what we call a throttle, and it's actually a portable computer that the locomotive engineers carry with them. And it has speed and sound and all the things you need to control your train on it. And so we can let the public be interactive with them. Although we have had them run a signal and then, because they're talking and not paying attention. So it's just finding this balance
Risky.
between visitor experience and operations of the railroad.
Right.
But the guys are really good about it. Yeah. So...
And that's neat. It's like this living, breathing organism,
It is.
It's one thing to see it and see all the detail, and then it's another to press a button and see the forest fire and see trains pop out in different areas, and you realize, oh, this volunteer is following this train around all day.
All day.
Because they're driving it.
And each train has a job. Some of these trains drop cars in yards, and some move logs to the sawmill, and some do. There's specific jobs for the museum trains, and then after a volunteer has a certain number of hours, they can bring their own train. So sometimes we'll have a special train that's really pretty, and like a passenger train or something that wouldn't normally fit, but the public loves it, and they can see steam trains this way too. So that's kind of how it goes and how we're different. We sit in our creative district. I know a lot of the cities in Colorado now have creative districts, and we're in Greeley's creative district. And in this district, we're considered performance art because it's different every day. So, yeah, because our trains are different. The guys can choose what train to run today. The dispatcher can choose what trains to run. They might bring a personal train. So it's always different, always changing. And I love that about it because you never know what you're going to see when you come here.
Right. How many trains are y'all running at once?
We could put 18 trains on the layout. And these are 50 to 100 car trains.
Right.
I don't think anyone else in the world can do that.
They're lengthy.
We can do one that's actually over 100 feet long in real length.
Wow.
And so I really believe we can run the longest trains in model railroading here at the museum.
That's very cool. And a lot of people don't know this, right?
Right, they don't. And that's something that model railroaders are more interested probably than the public. Although a really long train looks really cool when you see it.
Right.
We call it our extreme train weekends, and we have them a few times a year.
Yeah.
When we throw one that's so long that there's no other way around it.
Okay, Sherelle is going to have to leave us, unfortunately, but she has some parting words before she heads out of the broadcast.
thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to share the museum with you. We definitely would like to have you come visit. We have some pretty interesting, fun, amazing events getting ready for the holidays, so you'll want to bring your family. They'll be great. Check our website, www.cmrm.org, for our special holiday extended hours.
And do you have like a Halloween event, Thanksgiving event?
We do.
or-
We do. We have extended Thanksgiving hours with some pretty special...
We have a special public reveal this year on Thanksgiving Day
Oh,
of a new collection that we have. So we're rolling out a huge announcement on Thanksgiving weekend.
Okay.
So
if you're
many
stuffed,
events.
you've eaten too much, you think, oh, there's nothing else to do but football.
Pull up
Disagree.
our website and
Definitely.
look at what we're doing, and then come see us that weekend or between there and Christmas.
Yeah.
We're doing a Polar Express event. We're doing a Lionel National Train Day event. We're doing all kinds of Christmas, and Santa comes here a lot.
So you'll definitely want to bring your family and
Yeah.
make it a fun holiday experience.
Okay, good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Before the podcast started, before we started recording, you had mentioned that this building, your business, used to be called the Greeley Freight Station. And you said there was a funny story behind that. Do you care sharing that?
I will share it with you. So the Greeley Freight Station did exist, but it's been torn down in the 60s. But Dave loved the concept, so he opened this as the Greeley Freight Station. Well, as it became known in the model railroading world, people could not remember the name. And so we would put stuff out on ads, and people would read the word freight as fright, and they thought we were a haunted house. And so I would get a whole bunch of haunted house calls. Do you sell Halloween stuff? And the other thing that happened was with the word freight, the people that read the word right were the people with the yellow pages who put us with freight forwarding, which is UPS and FedEx. And I would get calls, can you ship a trampoline? Can you pack my house and ship it? Can you? And so people couldn't find us, and it was a very confusing name. So we used some Google research and came up with, we're in Colorado, we're a model railroad, and we're a museum. So we came up with the name Colorado Model Railroad Museum.
And when did this name change?
2015 is when we really officially rolled out with it. So it took about a year to research the change and then make it happen. And we've liked it ever since. It's worked well for us. Other than sometimes we get confused with the Colorado Railroad Museum in Golden. So we're the Colorado Model Railroad, and we feature model railroads. We're the only one in Colorado that does model railroading.
So this might explain part of
So-
my surprise when I showed up and near the end of 2014, and it was called the Greeley Freight Station, and I thought
Right.
it's going to be a train museum of relics. And then,
Right.
to my good surprise, there were models here.
Yep. That's
So-
exactly it. And so our name change really changed our image, and that's when we decided who we are and what we do. That's where we came up with the joy and the creativity and what is the future of what we want to do, and that's what we want to do.
Was your location intentional here, right next to the Union Colony Pacific Railroad Station?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's actually tracks on the west side of our building that are the old Colorado and Southern line. It's disconnected now, so it's empty rail, but we sat between two railroads, so very historic.
Right.
Our warehouse was a railroad warehouse.
And
It sits to the south of us.
Do you know any of the history behind when this train station stopped being used as a passenger?
The one that's now the Chamber of Commerce, the old Greeley station, is across the street from us to the north. Amtrak was there through the 70s, went away for a while, came back in 1991, and went away in 97. And after that, it became the Chamber of Commerce. And so now Visit Greeley sits in there, and you can go into our Chamber of Commerce. It's a visitor center. So you can still see Greeley's old depot. It's beautiful
Right.
to go in there. But Dave built right across from it to be near all the railroad stuff. And like the train that went by a minute ago, it kind of shakes our building. So it kind of gives you that real train feel.
Yeah.
So definitely part of the experience is the real trains going by outside.
Right. Well, I will say I had the opportunity at my summer job this year in Windsor. I stood about 20 feet from a train that was going past me. And that was a very humbling experience to realize the weight
The
and the
weight.
inertia.
Yes.
And just feeling that rumble every time the wheels click a line. There's just something about trains, I think, that we're missing from the human experience, just being in all of our own cars all the time.
I agree. There's that sound that's associated with it, that click, 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 click. There's something that we connect with that. There's something about the way that they move forward, and they have a signaling system, and just the mass of a train is just so amazing to the human being. It just really gives us a size reality check, I think, of mass reality check of how fragile we are maybe and how solid they are. There's a huge connection with autism in trains. And there's something with the sound and the movement of trains that connects with autism. And so it's something that's just innate in human beings that connects with railroads.
That's interesting.
So
Do you have any opinions about the decline of widespread railroad travel in the United States?
I'm sad about it. I understand. I mean, it's so much more efficient and timely for us to just fly.
Okay, sure. I will grant you on the flying.
And big
but
business
what about
makes that
driving?
happen.
What about driving?
I don't know that train travel really lost to the car as much as it lost to the airplane. Because train travel was still around after the invention of the car, and we traveled on passenger trains through the 60s across the country, and people still do it today. I mean, there are tour groups that just ride trains. They ride Amtrak all over, and Colorado tourism is all about railroads. You know, you come and you ride the 9 trains in Colorado, and
Really?
people come and just do that. And we're the 10th railroad. We're just little. So I'm really heavily involved in our tourism world as the 10th railroad in Colorado. And so, tourism in Colorado, if you're not skiing, if you're here in the summer, you're probably riding a train if you're from out of state.
That is so interesting. I've lived out here over 4 years, and I've never heard train as a driving piece of tourism for Colorado.
It's because you live here. And you live in the Front Range, and we don't really have a train you can ride here. The Georgetown Loop is the closest.
Which is where?
It's just an hour outside of Denver. It's in Georgetown. And then there's the
Is that
Leadville
south?
train. It's up I-70.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you can ride Leadville if you go up kind of close to Copper Mountain up there. And then you can go down and ride the Durango and Silverton and Durango and the Coopers and Toltec and the Royal Gorge train. There's trains all over our state, and people come from all over the world to ride them. So I think that's one of the ways that we get our international visitors. If you're in here in the summer, we'll have 1 or 2 foreign countries and people from multiple states in here. Just because we're kind of that strange train attraction that people come to see. Our model railroaders were kind of Mecca. We're like a bucket list place for model railroaders around
Really?
the world. Oh yeah. We've had very touching moments twice since I've been here. We've had a family gathering for someone who wanted to have his last family gathering here. And it was
Really?
tear-filled. Yeah. Yeah, because he wanted to be here to say his goodbyes. So that's pretty touching.
Because this is truly, it's not just what I want to say, it's not just a sidebar piece of information. This is the biggest.
This is
in
the
the
biggest
world.
and the best model railroad. Our competition is in Germany. It's called Miniature Wonderland, and it's huge, massive. It's their number 1 tourist attraction. They employ 100 people. We employ 5. So for us to compete with them, with what we've done volunteer-based, is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And people tell us they like our experience better because we're immersive, and they flip a switch and all the little trains run, and there's nobody out there with you, and you're just looking at things. You're not in it. You're not hearing it. You're not being a part of it. So we're different.
Yeah, it's not real. As real.
It's not as real.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of experience. And most museums in America, our competition is the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, and there's a man that walks in every morning and flips the on switch, and the little train goes around. Well, you can only watch that train go around so many times, and you're bored. You come here and you see a different train every moment. They're just passing you all over, and it's not the same train that's going to come out that just went in the yard. And so we're alive, and I think that's what sets us apart.
The piece I had no idea about after being here multiple times is that some of the trains were working. They're moving.
They have jobs.
Yeah, they're moving cargo around.
Yeah, we have industries all over our layouts, and they need supplies, and so our guys will run certain trains and drop off cars. We actually have a shipyard in the back where we export the lumber that we created. So the train went from the logging industry on top of the mountain to the sawmill. From the sawmill, it probably went to the warehouse yard to be redistributed, and then it went out to our shipping yard, and we're exporting it. We do a 4th grade field trip where we talk about the whole economy of moving product and how it's done by rail and truck. And we can show that right here from logging the tree to exporting the lumber. So it's kind of a cool experience.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of trains now still move huge amounts of freight, even
They
though
do.
they're not necessarily passenger based anymore. And so one thing I was going to say earlier is I feel a lot of people's only interaction with trains now, unfortunately, is
I'm waiting
10 minutes.
The thing people don't understand about railroading today is that it's really green. They use diesel to create electricity. They're electric. Big trains are electric, and they're very green. For the amount of product you can move per amount of fuel used, they just blow trucking off the map. It's just that they can't go as far, and the trucks have to take things to the individual stores. But as far as green and saving our environment, trains are the way to go, all the way, and hands down. The technology in railroading today is just phenomenal in how they conserve energy and use electricity. So it's pretty cool.
I feel like there's a lot of barriers to infrastructure, though. I mean, you got trucking companies who've got a comfortable spot in the ecosystem.
Yes.
You got FedEx, UPS, vehicle delivery systems.
And we need that because a train can't go to your house. So it's finding that balance, but utilizing trains when you can because of the economy. I mean, look what Hyperloop might do someday.
Right. Yeah.
That's a train.
Elon Musk working on that right now as we speak.
So
digging underneath
we'll
LA.
have to model it, I guess, underneath our layout.
Right.
But,
well, considering the subway system is a fascinating thing that we didn't have space on the ground, so let's do trains, but let's put them underground. You know?
Yeah, it's quite a concept that was invented, and like it's still used today. Trains are just such a huge piece of the world. It's part of our history. It's part of our culture. But the one thing that really gets me is I'll have a whole bunch of kids in here, little kids today, and I'll say, who knows what a caboose is? And they'll raise their hand, and I'll say, does anyone see a caboose in here? Because we have a full-size original Colorado and Southern caboose in here, and kids know what a caboose is. But have they ever seen one in real life? No, because cabooses went away in the 70s. Our year here is 1975 because you expect to see a caboose on a train. It's part of our culture. It is America. You see a caboose on a train, but cabooses they were fully gone by the end of the 80s because now there's so much wireless and digital technology available that you don't need a caboose anymore. You don't need a guy to jump out and change a switch. It's all electronic.
So wait, what was the function of the caboose? Why did it start going away?
We had cabooses because many reasons. You needed a place for the conductor to sit and sort the cars that would be dropped off. So he was in charge of the freight. He had a desk in the caboose. He could sort all of the stuff he was dropping off his train. Your brakeman sat there because he had to watch the train, because if there was a problem with any of the axles, he can pull the brake lever from the caboose. Your brakeman sits in the caboose, not the locomotive. And this is up until like the 80s. And so you had to have him there. Now, it all has to do with the wheel. It's hard to explain without actually having you look at it. Mm-hmm. But there was a technology invented in 1976 called a hotbox detector, and it was placed on the track, and it could sense the heat of the axles going over it. So if there was a bearing problem, and this is what the brakeman was looking for in the back of the caboose, he's watching the train looking for smoke or heat at night coming off of a wheel set, so he'd stop the train. Well, when they developed that detector, they no longer needed that position because they could test they know exactly what's actually hot, so they can stop and change that bearing or whatever they need to do to cool that so that your train doesn't derail. And so cabooses started going away because switches are controlled electronically. You don't have to jump out and do it. You no longer break the train from the back. The conductor sits in the front. So today your train crew is 2 people in the locomotive. You don't need a caboose. And in fact, they have what they call an end of train device on the train today. It's that little flashing red light on the end. That can detect everything about your train. Its speed, its length, its where it's at, GPS, everything's on it. So you don't need a caboose. If you see a caboose, it's an air-conditioned break room, and you're probably going to see it in Arizona where it's hot. Just wherever it's hot, like California, Arizona. And if they have a work crew, sometimes they'll pull out an old caboose that would have air conditioning just for a break room and throw it on a train. They're not functional anymore. But you expect to see it. You expect to see a caboose on a train in a model. And so that's what we do. So we bring America to life. We give you that nostalgic experience that you don't know if it's even nostalgic yet.
You're blowing my mind here. Because, I have always known what a caboose was since I was 5, but I didn't know what they were for.
Have you ever seen one in real life?
I have.
Like on a train?
Yeah. Where I grew up outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, I rode a passenger train once, and there was a caboose on it.
Okay, but it was a passenger train. Yeah. Yeah, and, the tourist trains all have cabooses, and you can actually pay more money to ride in that if you like. Yeah, it's a special experience. They used to do, I've heard about the Great Western running caboose rides from Loveland to Fort Collins even in the 80s, just for fun. Yeah. So you could get a ticket and just ride across. I've heard people that did that. What a great experience to be able to do it. I wish we could still do it today. It would be fun. But that's one of the things I love about having our caboose in here is telling that story and understanding it's our culture and who we are as Americans. We expect cabooses. And usually they're red. Yeah. You think of a red caboose.
Do you know why that
I don't know.
originated?
The Colorado and Southern all had red cabooses. A lot of the East Coast ones did. But the UP cabooses are all yellow, and that's what we see here. I grew up on a Burlington Northern line in Nebraska. They were all green.
Oh.
But I saw cabooses as a kid, but that was the 70s, and they were still around.
Right. When I consider a caboose, I think red, like a maroonish color.
And that might have to do with just our children's books that we grew up with. So,
Do you think
but ours is red because it was originally red. So
Right.
ours is its original color.
And you also have a full scale engine outside as well, right?
It's a boxcar. Yeah.
Boxcar.
Uh-huh. Yep, and it's from the railroad that we run in here. It's the same Oregon, California, and Eastern.
Right.
And we have models of that we sell here, too. It's the one souvenir you can get from our railroad is that boxcar. And our caboose, but we're sold out. They're on order.
Getting them.
We're getting there.
Right.
So,
Do you all have anything on the horizon? Or
yes, we do.
Yeah.
We have outgrown our building with our youth programs. Like I said, we were teaching schools. We taught at the Boys and Girls Club this summer. We built layouts with kids, and it was so fun. And we need to do that on site. We need to be able to connect with the hobby and continue the hobby, like the discussion we had just a little bit ago. People need to try it. And so we want to have a space where you can come in and build your own tree. Or come in and there's this new product, they call them T-Tracks, and they're like square foot layouts, and you can build as many as you want and build your layouts this way so that they're portable, storable, because that's what we need in our world today, right? And so we're adapting. So we're going to be able to build those things with kids. And so we need to build a youth center. So we're looking at a capital campaign in the next year or two, and then an expansion. So,
any idea for where you want to go? Do you want to stay downtown?
yeah, because this layout is the ultimate in model railroading. It'll be the end of your journey through our museum. But we do want to tell a story of model railroading and its history. And so we'll have a new entrance and a new building, and you'll come in there, and you will end up here in what we have now with this layout.
So you'll add on to this building.
And then we'll show you what the ultimate in model railroading looks like at the end of your journey. But we want you to make a tree on the way, or maybe we'll have a CAD system there and you can design a house, or maybe we'll make houses out of cereal boxes one day and maybe Legos the next day. It's all about modeling and being creative and using your imagination and having fun.
Right. And how cool would it be to have a class or a school design a layout, put an active train on it, and then have the kids and family come by to see what they created.
What they did, yeah. And then we could donate them to places. I was on a radio show earlier this week with a senior center and an assisted living, and they're like, we'd love to have a train in our building. Is there any way you could bring a train over? We need to build these things. The public can help us build them, and then we can take them and share them with people. It's all about creating joy. Right. I think we can do it.
And in an age of diminishing attention spans,
yes.
One thing I was sitting here thinking about model trains versus Legos is that model trains, it requires attention to detail, and it takes time.
Yeah.
It would take time to craft a building in full scale, full detail. And I think that could be good for kids or even adults' attention spans to sit there for a very long time and think about consistent detail, have intent, one project that takes me this long. And not only that, but it's not digital. We're not talking about a screen.
Right.
For most of these situations, we're talking about a physical handheld product that you could then put into a larger environment when you get done.
Yeah, I think it's great. And that it can be done. I think anymore we look at stuff and we're like, it's too hard. That'd take too long. I don't want to do it. Like you said, I think it's that challenge. I think we can do it. And we want to provide the place to do that. And I think our society needs it. I think it would be fun for people.
I think pieces like this are missing.
I do too.
These in-person, a very humanistic experience to sit or to stand and talk with the conductor, and he's telling me all about the history of all this layout.
Yeah.
There's a personal experience to it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right. And I really think that tactile, physical aspect I mentioned, that's super important these days.
I think it is too. And that's where we talk about just the creativity that it takes to build any piece of it. Some people just like to do the scenery part. Some people like to build a building, and some people like to take 3 kits and say, I want to build a totally different building. They call it kit bashing, and they'll build something totally unique, or they'll build it completely from scratch. Like I said, we've built houses out of cereal boxes with kids and had just as much fun because they painted them, or we've done really high-end models with people, but usually adults. But with kids, we do scenery layouts, and they love it, and they're perfectly capable of doing every piece of it.
Yeah, some of your towns and your display are pretty complex. How do you all decide, all right, this car is going to go here, we're going to put this truck, this dog right here, or is it just one piece at a time?
Yeah, well,
how's this
unfold? Layout was kind of one man's idea. Okay. And so he kind of had in mind what he wanted to do with these scenes, but he's given us leeway to change them. And so we have volunteers who are really good at this. We have a volunteer named Steve who's just really good at creating scenes, and he's like, you need this part because this makes it come to life. And so he'll add the little extra touches that just make it come to life. And he's the one who changes a lot of things out there. So you'll find we have scenes where you don't really notice, but there's a dog in the back of the pickup, and he's kind of looking up. And if you actually look where the dog's looking, there's a cat on a little sign hanging out of a window above him. Like really tiny detail stories that are going on. And what are the man and woman on the street side talking about? Well, there's another man coming along who's got this cart, or, there's just all these things that happen. And then we change stuff sometimes for fun. We built the Greeley Stampede Longhorn Parade in the layout during Greeley Stampede.
Oh.
So we added all these little Longhorn cows down the main street, and everybody came out to watch the parade, and we had cowboys on horses, and we added all the people to watch it. And so we can create fun experiences that relate to our lives today. So just fun.
That adds such another layer on top, because I thought when I visited that this was the layout that was always present, that this person would always be standing right here.
No, we changed it a lot. The concept is there, and we don't ever want to change the concept of what it is, but we like to have fun. And so we will change things, and you'll see different trains, and every now and then we'll throw something really crazy out there and have a sci-fi week and put Star Wars characters all over the layout because we can get them to scale.
Right.
Or we did a puppy adoption weekend here, and we just had pets all over the layout, and you had to find all the people's pets. So our games are tied into the fun that we're having and whatever theme we're doing, but it's a tool that we can use to connect and have fun.
Yeah.
So
Well, like with many things, I feel like you get you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
And if people come in, model trains, whatever.
Exactly.
Then that's the experience you're going to get. But if you learn a couple of these really fine, acute, interesting things, you're going to have a much better experience.
You are.
Especially if you pick up one of these scavenger hunt pieces of paper and start intentionally looking for things. You're probably going to notice hundreds of stuff that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Right. Your 30-minute visit just turned into an hour and 30 minutes because you're hunting for the eagle in flight.
Right.
Or whatever little thing it is on there. But you did hit on what's important here that really sets us apart, and that is that the volunteers are having fun too. And that's a huge difference between coming in and just turning on a train and watching it go in circles and saying, this is my train, I chose it, I'm doing this job because I want to. And so it just changes the whole attitude of the volunteer, and they're having fun, and they're sharing that fun with you as the visitor. And I think that's why it's such an unexpected experience when you come here, because not many museums have people that interact with you throughout the whole thing. Really, it's almost like living history. When you go to like Jamestown and the people are all in the Revolutionary War clothes, we're like that, but they're engineers. And so it's that same kind of experience.
Yeah. How do you find people get wrapped up in volunteering here? How do they come?
They walk through the door and fall in love with it. We have guys that worked on railroads, guys that build model railroads, and guys that have never touched a train in their life. And we mix them all together, and they all have fun. And some love talking to the public, and some love running trains more. But together, it's just an amazing group of people. So it's just, they have fun, and we make sure they're always having fun.
Right.
And that's all the difference in the world.
And there's something just geeky and exciting about watching trains cross huge bridges, and then it goes in the tunnel, and then I was sitting there thinking, okay, it's going to pop out over here, and I quickly walk over there, and I'm sitting there waiting, and it comes out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so neat. And I'm just like, I forgot my age. I forgot, where I was.
I love that saying, I forgot my age. That should be our tagline. I like that.
Well, it's very appropriate. It's true.
I like that, because that's what we're trying to do. We want you to come in here and have fun, and who cares how old you are.
Right.
And our volunteers are all ages too. We have college students that are volunteering that go to UNC.
Oh, nice.
And we have retired people. We have airline pilot. We have a bus driver. We have all walks of life. So
do the UNC students typically volunteer just because they're interested in model trains, or because it applies to
No, they're
their
typically
degree,
interested in
or?
model trains before they get here. We get there is a small population of guys who still model train as kids and grow up with it, and they know we're here and they come here. I've had people move here to volunteer here. That's happened a couple times.
Moved to
Actually
Greeley to
relocated
volunteer
where
here.
they live to volunteer here because this brings them life.
Wow.
And so a volunteer experience here is fun, and it gives you purpose. And that's what we try to do for our volunteers, is give them as much experience as our visitors get. And so
And we also want female volunteers,
and we
female
have some.
conductors.
We do.
Good.
And I can do it, although it's scary when I'm out there. But
Well,
they've taught me.
You're intimidated?
Yeah, because I don't do it often enough to really... There's 128 signals out there that I have to know where they are.
128
Uh-huh.
signals.
Signals that you got to watch.
Telling you
Go
take
or
this
stop.
track or stop at this conjunction.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. To actually run trains, we have a pretty in-depth volunteer training experience. It's a process. It's a 2-weekend process. And then it just takes more experience and you get more comfortable with it. But
Right.
yeah, it is, anybody can do it. I mean, if they can teach me, anybody can do it. But it's fun. I enjoy it when I do it. It is fun to operate a train. There's something about you forget your age when you're running a train.
Well, I can't imagine how immersed I would be if I went to this training and I thought, okay, I'm not at work, I'm volunteering. I'm about to drive. I'm going to imagine myself in this tiny train, 1/87th scale.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I'm going to drive this 1/87th scale train around like it's my business.
And I have to make sure
would
I don't
just
hit any
forget-
other train.
Yeah,
or
I just
pass
feel like the rest of the world would fade away.
It totally would.
And
And you're
then-
going through the mountains and it's beautiful and go through towns and you wonder what the people think when your train goes by or
Yeah.
who's out there, what are they doing?
And if anyone out there is doubting this or if they're a skeptic when they hear this, they're pooping on creativity and imagination. We've got to bring that back.
We do.
We've got to be able to make a box a spaceship again.
I agree. And that's what we're all about. And if it's a spaceship that you connect with, build one. That's what we're all about, is connecting you to something that brings you passion, joy, and fun. You know? So whatever your passion is, model railroading can help you find a way to experience it with fun.
Yeah. We're not saying you have to fall in love with the place and volunteer.
Right.
But give it a shot.
Give it a shot. Definitely come visit.
I think listeners will be surprised.
I think the one thing that my goal as the director of this museum is to get northern Colorado in this region, from Carter Springs to Cheyenne, where our volunteers come from, to take ownership in this place. This is your facility. We're a nonprofit. This is your museum. Come and visit and take ownership in it. It's here in your world. And you have the opportunity to visit and be a part of it. And I just want people to fall in love with it and be as invested as they want to be in it. So I think it's a community treasure.
Yeah.
So
I could agree.
That's my job, is to get people to come and invest in it.
Well, as we wrap up, I did notice that your hours are somewhat limited, so I would like you to just tell on air for people who are interested in visiting here.
Yeah.
What are your hours?
So our hours throughout the year are always Friday and Saturday from 10 to 4 and Sunday afternoons from 1 to 4.
Okay.
That's all year long. There's tourism in June, July, and August, those people that are coming through the state. So we're open Wednesdays and Thursdays 10 to 4 also.
Okay.
So we add more days in the summer when there's tourism. There's just not enough tourism through the winter for us to be open every day. We don't have the staffing for it. Someday I'd love to grow to that point, but we're not there yet. We're still a little mom and pop shop. So we're here every Monday. If you're in town and you have out-of-town guests, we're here Monday. You can come in. We won't charge you. We're cleaning. You might not see the full experience, but you can still come by. We do it all the time.
But typically Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the time. And then the holidays, we find that Christmas and trains have a huge connection. So we're open every day the kids are out of school, Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Why do you think that is? Christmas and train.
Because you put a train under your tree. It's what you do.
But even then, think about this. The only reason there was a train underneath the tree was because we all rode trains back then.
Exactly.
It's like Hot Wheels with cars.
Yep. So Christmas and trains just go together, though. Just it's part of Americana. Norman Rockwell painted it often. Right. So we are open when the kids get out of school. I think it's the 15th of December this year through January 1st, except the exact holiday dates. We're even open Christmas Eve in the morning. We make it a holiday. We make it a special day. And we see Grandpa and the grandkids because Grandma kicks them out of the house. Get out of here while we're getting ready for Christmas Eve.
That's right.
And it's a huge attendance day for us, and it's fun. And we just play Christmas music and just have Christmas fun.
That's so nice.
So
come out here for the holidays. Yep. You don't have to bring a child in here. You will not be shamed as an adult walking in here by yourself.
Not at all.
You'll be in good company.
All ages come here.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I want to say a special thank you to Russell Isaac Long, the man responsible for all the music used here at the NoCo. Are you looking for a little bit of bonus content in addition to the regular episodes on the show? Look for us out there on the interwebs on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at The More You Know Co. Until next time, peace!